All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing our preview and prediction for the 2023 California Golden Bears. Looking at this coaching staff, Justin Wilcox, 30-36 record through 6 seasons as the lead man in Berkeley. Jake Spavital's going to enter his first year as offensive play caller. And Peter Sermon, he's been with Cal since 2018. He'll be the defensive play caller this fall. The Golden Bears return the most starters in the Pac-12 with 17. This potentially may be Justin Wilcox's final ride as he is significantly on the hot seat. Previewing this offense, Nick, last year they added Jack Plummer over from Purdue, and I said this would be a significant addition to their offense, and I thought they would at least approach 28 to 30 points per game. They went from 23.8 to 23.9, but Plummer certainly did provide an impact, had almost 3,100 passing yards, so he certainly did his job at least. I was halfway right, but the offense did not get better one bit, it seemed. This is a unit that still produced under 365 yards per contest. Running yards per game. That was still a very low number despite Jaden Ott, a guy I singled out last year as a player that was going to get on the field as a former 4-star. Ott had 274 yards and 3 touchdowns in week 4 against Arizona, but that was most of his production for the year. After that, he did not have 100 yards rushing one bit, but 897 and 8 touchdowns rushing. He also caught the ball 46 times for 321 and another 3 scores. This is a player who's a true dual threat back, though, a great asset as a pass catcher. He great cuts in the short area with patience. Embraces contact at 6', 205, a shifty player that finds his lane and hits a burst, always making a smooth cut while moving. Jaden Ott, this is going to be one of the most coveted players potentially next year's portal, with NIL being a big thing. But a big topic here is who's going to be quarterback. Plummer, of course, transfers out. Sam Jackson, Ben Finley come in. Jackson from TCU, an impressive athlete with some good twitch, good arm strength, a very undersized player, though, 5'11", 185, will likely convert to wide receiver or be, a versatile Wildcat type player if he does not get the starting nod. Ben Finley shockingly leaves NC State, which they ended Brendan Armstrong, so that makes a little bit of sense. The brother of Ryan Finley. He started the last 2 games of the year for the Wolfpack. Showcased some good touch and IQ. Certainly needs to establish some better timing, but he has a good rip downfield and actually was really, the accuracy was really inconsistent. He did showcase good accuracy outside the numbers. What do you make of this offense at first glance, Nick? The number I read the last 2 years in terms of points per game, they got better by 1/10 of a point, really nothing at all. But they do have some nice talent here. We'll talk about the receivers in a minute where it gets even better.
There is some talent on this offense. I think, Ott obviously is the wild card here. I think if he can get to 1,200 to 1,400 yards this season, I think that could be a huge playmaker there for this Cal offense. The offensive line worries me a little bit. We're going to touch on that in a few seconds, but I think if Ott can find those running holes and kind of show that burst of speed that he showed early on last year and he did in his high school film, I think there's a lot of talent love this guy, one of the higher recruits they've received on offense the past few years, a 4-star coming out of Southern California at a high school, Riverside County. I like Ott a lot here. I think he's a very talented player. I think Finley's probably the guy to go with here. I think Ben Finley's going to bring the most to this offense. I think, Sam Jackson's not a bad player. I think he showed flashes in the past at TCU, but I really think Finley's going to be the guy to go with here. I like the potential he has, a talented player. I do get a little concerned because the backfield outside of Ott is concerning, right? There's a couple transfers in there and some redshirt freshmen. I really think that the drop-off is going to be steep from this backfield. So it's going to be really kind of relying on Ott here to kind of carry the load. And I think he certainly is capable of doing so. I really trust him to be able to do that. But when you have that kind of worry for me with no other backfield production potentially, it gets me a little concerned with the way this offense is going to look.
Yeah, that's certainly a good point and a good take. I'm personally going to disagree with it because I do think that the guys they picked up in the portal will be somewhat of an asset. Byron Cardler from Oregon, Justin Williams-Thomas from Tennessee, then King Duru from Purdue. So they certainly have a deep backfield. Like you said, the production wasn't all that great. And that includes Ott, who was a very good player, 96 yards per game. That's mainly because of an offensive line that was just completely poor. One of the nation's worst pass blocking units. The top offensive lineman, Ben Coleman from there was a tackle last year. He transfers out. Matthew Cindric and then guard Brian Driscoll are 2 veterans. They struggled a good bit. The offensive line lacks size. Most of these guys are under 300 pounds. Some really good height, though, including 6'7" guard Everett Johnson. He showcased some good flashes as a pass blocker in 5 games a series ago. But they made zero commitment to bring a new talent to this O-line. Martin Tyne at tackle, a guy that was picked up on the JUCO trail. That's it in this class, Nick. That's not great one bit. Javonte Sylvester is another guy also to watch. They've made zero commitment to improve this offensive line. So even though they have a respectable backfield in my eyes in terms of talent, it doesn't really seem like production is going to be a big plus for them, considering the upfront part. It's not much different.
Certainly, I agree. That's the point that I was trying to make there. I think that there is some talent with this backfield. I just think they're not going to be able to find their opportunities with the holes. This is definitely a very undersized offensive line. That's concerning for me. I think you got to win your battles in the trenches. We're going to highlight the Auburn game. It's an interesting game for this Cal team to play, but I think they're going to get dominated in the trenches. We said that in the Auburn preview, and that's going to kind of cost them in tight games here throughout the season. These guys, not a whole lot of experience. These guys on the offensive line, they're just undersized. They didn't really attack it when they're probably something they should have grabbed from the portal. They really only made one addition to the portal here, like you said, with Tyne. I think that was a missed opportunity for Justin Wilcox and his staff to address a need. They kind of just ignored it. I think it's going to be one of their downfalls this year.
The receiving position does have two pretty good football players. Jeremiah Hunter, the length, the thick lower half for a guy 6'2", 205. He does a really good job at finding the soft spot in defenses, good at making tough hands catches, has been a very consistent pass catcher with excellent hands. He rarely drops passes over his career. And they also picked up Brian Hightower from Illinois, a very good ad, some really good size at 6'3", 215. Lined up mainly out wide, showcased some ability to catch with defenders draped all over him, a boundary catcher. I do like this duo right here. You throw in Jay Nott as well. Jake Spavital, this guy, his scheme is going to be based around speed, space, numbers, and angles on the running game. So I certainly think from a scheming standpoint, and some of the receivers they have, including Maven Anderson, this is a nice trio of pass catchers. Again, the backfield I'm very high on. Well, not exactly elitely high on, but I definitely think it's a suitable backfield. There's a good bit of turnover on this offense. I'm going to go with a B- though. The quarterback position's got a lot of unproven talent, a lot of turnover all over the place on this football team, Nick. So I definitely think there's some good upside, especially with Spavital coming in, but I'm not going to jump the gun.
There is some talent here. I like what this offense has. I think when you return a top pass catcher in Jeremiah Hunter, that's something to get nearly 1,000 yards receiving for him last year, 16.1 yards per catch, 5 scores for him. Marvin Anderson, a very underrated piece here, 372 yards receiving last year. Another guy, Monroe Young, looking to take a step forward this year, 231 yards receiving and 3 scores for him. So there is some talent on this offensive weapons. I think there's some decent wide receivers here. I like bringing in the Hightower, like you said, the wide receiver Z role. I think he kind of slots in there perfectly. I'm not too excited on this offense. I think a B- is kind of. I think they'll be kind of in that same similar 23, 24 points per game, but they're really not going to see any major improvement, which is something that's kind of been an issue here for Cal. Bit of a stagnant team over the last couple seasons.
Cal ended up losing 14 players to the portal, a pair of quarterbacks and running backs. They did add 13 guys, including a pair of quarterbacks, so plenty of turnover on this side of the ball. Looking at the defense, Justin Wilcox has always been known as an elite defensive coach, various schemes to his background. Him and Peter Sirmon's been together for a long time. This is a guy that encourages speed and violence from his linebackers. Considering as a former linebacker himself, that makes a lot of sense. This 3-4 that he's implemented has been wishy-washy over the last couple of years, because this is a Cal team that certainly struggles in terms of landing talent. But they have, over the time of Wilcox's tenure, had some really good football players. Looking at this pass defense, though, 123rd in FBS, 111th total in yards. Looking at the portal, they lost 6 guys. They added 6 as well, 4 in the secondary, so some big-time turnover there. They returned 9 starters. The lone losses were the second leading tackler, Aldo Gio, and then safety Daniel Scott, who's a very good football player. They do return their top 2 sack getters. This team was 122nd in tackles for loss, 111th in sacks. Really struggled in short yardage. They did well versus explosive plays, but teams really grinded down against them. They allowed 75 plus rushing yards only once this past season against UCLA, which was in the season finale, 352 yards in that one. They allowed 17 of 19 rushing touchdowns in the red zone. This is a team, I think, that certainly has some impressive things going for them. But when you look up front, this is not very impressive. Xavier Carlson, Miles Jernigan, outside linebacker, they come back. The front three overall need to be better, though. Guys like Ethan Saunders, Carrera, these guys are 6'4", 340. Flat out poor last year for them in the middle of this defense. Defensive end Brett Johnson, 6'5", 295, has missed the last 2 seasons, but he was a good player when he was on the field. Could be a crucial returnee, but it's hard to bank on a guy who hasn't played in a couple of years. Not much has changed with this unit up front, Nick, since 2020. All these guys have been around. Carlson, I think he was a transfer last year from Utah. It's hard to expect better results from this run defense, which hasn't been terrible, but production in the backfield is lacking significantly, and that's going to be Cal's biggest downfall here.
I agree. This front seven's not terrible. Front seven, these guys have played together for a while. There's some experience there, but the numbers are just lacking. Ricky Correa, Xavier Carlton, both these guys, I want to see them step up this year. Correa, his numbers, not where you want to see out of them. 37 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, half a sack for him. Just disappointing numbers overall. You really need to see more out of your nose tackle there. Johnson, of course, returning. Past 2 years missed of injuries. What type of production can you expect from him? I think it's going to be you have to be cautiously optimistic on the lower end of the production scale there for him. But there's a lot of talent with a player like that. Overall, the front seven, there is some talent here, but I just think these guys struggle to get after the quarterback, and it definitely plays a role for this defense. You'd expect the Justin Wilcox defense to be a little bit better.
Yeah, Carlson was one of those talented guys you talk about. They picked up David Reese from Florida, a versatile edge player, strong at the point of attack, has struggled with health, though. And then Jackson Sirmon Peter's son, transferred over from Washington last year. Good reaction time, great diagnoser, phenomenal awareness. He's a forceful tackler versus the run. Does very well shedding the get downhill. He's going to be paired up with Sergio Allen from Clemson. Should plug in the other inside linebacker spot. Big time limited rotation here at this position, though. You talk about, on the offense, they added a lot of new guys, a lot of turnover there. This is a problem here at this inside linebacking position, though, because Sermon, this is a guy who's one of the better linebackers in the country at 104 tackles a season ago. He's going to be leaned on heavily for this football team. That's going to be a lot of wear and tear on the body here in the Pac-12. What's your overall thoughts on this front seven?
Yeah, Sermon's certainly going to be carrying the bulk of the load here. 104 tackles last year, 6 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks for him. Kind of that defensive leader there, a lot of experience. Considering they lose their next 2 biggest tackles, that's a ton of production you're relying on as Sermon. I think bringing in a guy from Clemson who has experience in Sergio Allen is certainly a nice pickup in the portal, right? That guy is somebody your team, it's certainly a high upside, but this front seven leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of question marks here. Some of these guys have a lot to prove. They got to show out at this point, and I just worry that this team's not going to be able to get after the quarterback.
They look at the secondary. They allowed 280 yards per game a season ago, nearly a 66% opponent completion rating, 23 touchdowns. And I think there's going to be some big-time improvements in the back end here. Daniel Scott departs, which is obviously big at safety. They return everybody else and even pick up some good, talented ball players. Jeremiah Irby at corner. He was impressive as a true freshman, a very good asset as a run defender, showcased some ball skills. He did allow the second most yards on the team, though, despite the positives. Fewest completion rate, though, so he was targeted a good bit. A very inconsistent player. As a true freshman, though, that's not bad one bit. He had 11 pass breakups. Patrick Morris coming over from San Diego State. This is a guy that was very productive in terms of ball production, as a 2-year starter for the Aztecs. He can anchor in the slot or potentially be the strong safety. He's also shown ability to be an asset versus the run, so we'll see what his role is. Noah Williams, they picked him up in the portal, should occupy outside. Overall, sound defender, good in run support and as a tackler. Matthew Littlejohn comes over from the JUCO ranks. Kalen Moore, an athlete from Colorado. And then Craig Woodson, 6'2", 210. Versatility for him, but he did struggle in coverage. He really thrived in the box. He has lined up at free safety and in the slot. So they got a variety of moving pieces here, Nick. I think the secondary is certainly going to be up. It's going to be on the up climb, especially with some of these new faces here. What is your thoughts?
I like Woodson a lot. I think he's got, a nice versatile piece there. 75 total tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss and 2 interceptions for him. Like you said, struggles in coverage, certainly a little bit concerning, but I think Woodson, you kind of move him around, you can get that piece in there and you use him to his full potential. I think Craig Woodson is a solid piece certainly to have for this team. I like Patrick McMorris as well. I think he was a strong safety. I think he's a good player to have in there. Jeremiah Eberle, the sky's the limit for him, right? A sophomore at this point, played decently at times as a true freshman, and 36 total tackles for him as a true freshman. Not a bad number. So I think the secondary has a lot of room to improve. These guys got some talent. They made some work in the portal with McMorris and Williams. So it certainly is. I'm glad to see them, kind of attacking the secondary here and trying to make an improvement on a secondary that wasn't terrible last year, but needs some work.
They do bring back Colin Gamble as well, so a lot of familiar faces for Wilcox, and these new guys I think will be productive. Overall, I'm going to give this unit a C+. Pass defense obviously needs to improve, and I think overall playmaking does also. But it's really just much of the same here in that front seven, especially up front, so I don't really see how much is going to change. I'm certainly hopeful because Wilcox is good, and, it seems every other year this defense will certainly click, especially in this conference. So this year maybe is when they click, but it's hard to bank on that, Nick. I do love Sermon, though, and some of these guys in the secondary, but C+ for me.
I also love Sermon. I think he's a great leader, and I think there is some talent on this defense, but a lot of what-ifs here that really concern me. I think these guys got to show it early on in the season that they're going to be really kind of contend here. I think Wilcox has the potential to coach these guys up, but I'm just a little concerned about the X's and O's.
Yeah, on defense, an encouraging unit with great coaches, but they aren't loaded with talent by any means. Again, the secondary is very solid. Looking at the schedule preview and prediction, the offense gets back to a lot of experience, a great core of weapons led by a trio of Jaden Ott, Jeremiah Hunter, Brian Hightower. The new scheme should certainly be beneficial, especially to offset the offensive line woes. They'll only slightly get better, I think, in my estimation. Finley has some bright potential, and I think Jackson's going to be used in a variety of ways. So I think, much like I said last year, I think the offense will see a minimum of a 5-point per game increase. We'll see if I'm wrong again. The defense, they get back 9 starters, which is great news for, an elite defensive coach. The run defense was serviceable despite, an unimpressive defensive line. That's certainly encouraging to note. Sermon, a great leader in the middle. Wilcox won't tolerate a repeat year in the secondary. Had some really crucial pieces. I think 23 points per game or less is going to be the expectation for me. Tough team to predict overall, but this is Justin Wilcox's last chance. I think he's going to go down swinging. 6-6 for me, though. You look at the schedule, I do think they will make a significant upset this season. I don't have the guts to pick it, Nick, but I definitely think Washington, Oregon State, and then that 3-game stretch to kick off the second half of the year. One of those teams is going to fall to the California Golden Bears. I'm just not sure who.
There's a lot of potential with this Cal team looking at the schedule. We talked a lot about that Auburn matchup week 2. It's a very intriguing matchup. Wouldn't be surprised if Auburn finds a way to lose that game and Cal pick up a nice win for themselves at home, out of conference SEC opponent. And I think Justin Wilcox want to be firing on all cylinders here. He wants to save his job, certainly. He likes coaching out there out west in Berkeley. I think he wants to save his job. 6-6, I don't think they'll be enough to save it, but like you said, they can find a way to squeak out an upset win against Utah, USC, Oregon, somewhere in that October to early November stretch. Maybe get Auburn there and finish with 8 wins. That will certainly save his job. I think 7 could potentially save it as well if they can find a way to get to a bowl game. This is not a tough schedule necessarily. I think that the home splits are nice for this team. I think they got a nice schedule of Arizona State at home, Washington State at home, have a transfer CLA. I think those are winnable games for this team. If Ott can find those running lanes and be able to give you a nice force in that backfield, I think this team has a potential to win, 6, 7, 8 games pretty easily.
Yeah, if they can figure out the quarterback and the offensive line does see some improvements, or even the scheme certainly offsets them to a notable degree, then I think we could potentially see 8 wins, and maybe this team could even compete for the conference. I'm not going to jump the gun on that. 6-6 for me. I'm certainly hopeful this team can accomplish more. I think Wilcox is a fun coach. If not, he'll be a great defensive coordinator in 2024 for a high-end Power 5 team.
I agree. I think Wilcox, if he finds a way to struggle here and loses his job, I think a lot of big programs in Power 5 football will be calling his name to call the defensive plays. He's a great young defensive mind. He'll certainly get another chance in college football.
That's going to be it for today's episode, guys. As always, Nick, I appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.